performance side of it. I'm sure there's other things you can say about the dance side, but that isn't really what we have right now, which is okay. Well, let's just give us an excuse to do it again. We're here to talk about the fact that like there might be a little bit of micro racism in our department or outside of a department in Hofstra in general, and then outside of that as well, just in this world and how we're dealing with that and what we can do to make it better.
Yeah.
Great. So before the panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little about themselves, I just want to say a couple logistics. So if everyone can do me a favor and turn off their camera and mute themselves so we don't have any like outside distractions. And also what's really helpful is if you click on your like top, there's like 3 little buttons, you can hide all non-video participants so you can only see the people who have their cameras on. Also, to add a note, we are recording this session just so we can put it somewhere so people who weren't able to make it can still come and listen and learn with all of us. So now that I said that, I'm going to give it over to the panelists.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Tana, go ahead.
I'll say one last thing. We are going to open up the entire conversation to everybody at the last 25 minutes, so around 6 o'clock, just so people who are not one of our panelists have a chance to speak, and this can really be a conversation for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of typing things in the chat now during our conversations, we'd rather save that for the end just so we aren't all distracted like reading messages in the chat. So like if we could do that, that would be awesome. But yeah, so without further ado, do we want to start with Kadeem and kind of go around? Everyone can introduce themselves, say a little bit about who they are and what they're feeling and how they're doing right now as a person, an artist, all of those things. But yeah, Kadeem, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Do you want me to just give all that at once? I can.
Why not? Let's do it. Let's jump in.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. Okay, so hi guys. I'm Kadeem. I graduated in 2019, so last year. I was a BA drama major in the department. And let's see how I'm feeling now. Definitely like a day-by-day thing, but I'm just really, really happy that this like space is like being opened up, and that we're actually like getting to have these conversations, because for the other panelists on like in this call, I'm sure you guys know what it's like when you're kind of like yelling into like a void or like constantly saying something, and then it's like it kind of is, it's like you don't know where all that noise that you're making is going. When I think back on like my time in the drama department and just everything that I've like all of my experiences culminating up to like now, I always am like searching for that one, like, did I have like that one outrageous moment where it's like, oh my God, like, you know, that one moment that caused like the whatever feelings of like shock or disbelief or whatever it is. But I don't think I ever had that one moment. It's really just like a culmination of like little micro things from like students and professors, and it's really like the bigger details that make like the bigger picture. Now when I like look back on my experience like in the department and everything, the lines of like where I like my boundaries within the department are now more defined to me. At the time, like when I was there, you know, when you're in something, you feel you don't really know the orientation of everything once you're in it, but once you step outside of it, then you can kind of like have a more 360 look. And so once I got out of it and I stepped back and I looked, it was like, you know what, like I really was not able to move the same way that my classmates were able to move. I wasn't able to do the things that, you know, that they could do, whether I knew it or not. And it's not even like I couldn't, but I couldn't. Does that make sense? It was kind of like an unspoken, like, this is not for you, you know? The other day I was thinking like, damn, even if I like really wanted to, I really feel like I could never be like a leading man at Hofstra, because that's just not, you know, this is not what aside from the fact that we don't do shows with like, you know, people who look like me as the lead, period. Like that's not even a separate conversation. This is the conversation, but that's a separate part of this conversation. What I'm talking about is the fact that, just like everything else aside, me as a person, who I am and like my Black like queerness, I'm not even considered for that category because of things that are not in my control. And that's really disheartening when I really sit back and I really look at things. It's like, wow, you know? And another thing that I have been thinking about more often was one instance at, I think this was this was undergrad beret. You know, the part where the opening where when the juniors the juniors act like the seniors who are graduating. The joke that was made about me was that I'm everyone's favorite human prop. And in the moment, it was like, obviously, like, it's a joke, like, it's fine. But when you really step back and kind of look at the scope of everything that you've done and, you know, kind of think about more like the perception of others, it's like, you know what? You're actually not that wrong. I kind of like was that, so to speak. And I don't really know how you guys are doing this. I hope I can chime in if other things like, you know, come back. But in the general sense, that's just what I have to say about, like, that's just like a slice of what I have to say about my experience. I hope that in the future, other little queer Black boys and girls don't feel the same way that I did, feeling very like marginalized and, you know, kind of just like in a box. Yeah, so that's just me.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, thank you. Important. Next on my screen, I have David. So I'd figure we'll just kind of shuffle around first and then get in, you know, chime in like Kadeem said. So yeah, David, if you want to share next.
Hi guys, I'm David. I just graduated in the class of 2020. I'm happy to be here. I'm so thankful for China and Thea and Maddie for allowing us to have this opportunity, because we are at such a pivotal moment in our history as a nation and our history as a school as well, that we're at the corner of change, and we just gotta like literally just cheat it. All we gotta do is go around the corner, and this is one of those ways that we can do that. In particular, the arts, I think, like, white people are the gatekeepers, and often minority voices are either pigeonholed as like, oh, you're that person that writes those stories for those people instead of stories that everybody can enjoy. And I think conversations like this are the root of breaking that. And I think that's very important. So thank you guys for that. As of late, I've been feeling a little overwhelmed. Kadeem said it best. It feels like you're yelling out into the world, and I don't want to say it's an echo chamber, but I'm hearing my brothers and sisters and everybody in between screaming at the top of our lungs about things that are happening, and I'm not really hearing any answers back, and that's daunting. And it's scary too, especially as, like, yes, I'm a minority. I'm queer, I'm Latin, and I'm Black. I'm mixed, but I don't look it. I feel I, in particular, am lying at this intersection of like, oh, white passing, but also other. And I know that experience of other, it's felt by so many other people, and it's hard. It's hard. There's no other way to put it right now. I got a lot to say about Hofstra. I always have, and and I've let it be known, especially as of late. Thank you to everybody if you signed the petition. Thank you if you shared it as well. And Max's letter. Thank you guys. I think that's important work, and we got to keep doing that. yeah, there's so much to say. It's just an intro. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We'll get back around, but yeah, thank you. Awesome. Next, I have Maya.
Hi, my name is Maya Carter. My pronouns are they, them. I also use she, her pronouns, and I graduated in 2016. So I think I'm old. I'm probably the eldest of the assembled flock. So it's really wonderful and humbling to be asked to come back and chat with folks and build a community. And really lean into this issue, which is a big one. It's been spoken by a couple other folks on this call. Both Kadeem and David have said, and I can also attest to the fact that people of color are tired right now. Every bone in my Black queer body just wants to like lie on the floor and like not get up. But the thing is, like, that's not how progress happens. Self-care is important, of course, and taking time for yourself is paramount, especially among all of the noise and the conversation and the panels and the asks for digital art, and the conversations coming into your space in a way that is different, being able to like separate and really take some time to remember who you are amidst having to, in some cases, perform right now, perform advocacy, make sure that you're here, making sure that you have a chance to take time for yourself is really good. But I'm happy to be here. It's sad it's taken so long, livid that this is still the conversation and has been the conversation. And, God forbid, maybe we'll continue to be the conversation until like something breaks. So I'm glad we're here to get the breaking started. Yeah, I too always have a lot to say about Hofstra. But I think I'm in a position of, I come back a lot. I think a lot of maybe some folks on this call have like seen me pop into like one of Cindy's classes and do something. Generally, it's always a Cindy class because she might be the only one, y'all. She might be the only one who's out here tenured, trying hard. But yeah, so I think I often find myself in a position to both, speak my piece and say what I need to say, but also to be a light to other folks who might be coming up after me, who are Black and brown and queer and trying to do what they need to do and survive in this department and survive in Hofstra in general. I think it's hard to be a student of color in a predominantly white institution in a college town that's full of predominantly Black and brown people, but you don't see them because the college itself is like a gentrifying force and goes out of its way to, in a lot of cases, especially in this department, separate you from folks who share your experience, I think they do a good job of making the othered feel even more othered and isolated. So I'm glad that this conversation is happening so that when folks see instances of that, you can call it out. I think that's all I have to say for now. I know we're going to keep talking, and that's going to be great too.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you. And then we have Tatiana.
Hi everyone, I'm Tatiana Montez. I graduated class of 2019, so a year ago. To say the least, like everyone said, right now is very, very overwhelming. I think specifically with what we have right now is just simply social media, unless you're actually going out and, participating, which I hope a lot of people are. It becomes too much. It becomes the point where you can't try and hide from it anymore. And I feel like there's still a lot of people now that are still trying to hide from what's really going on in the world. And you can't. You physically can't. And I'm really glad that we're having these talks and we're being open about how we feel about what's going on in the world right now. But specifically within the Hofstra like community, like Maya said, it's so small when it comes to people of color. Like you feel like you're trying to draw yourself to whoever looks like you in your class. And I feel like that's such a weird feeling where you have to search for someone that looks like you, someone that understands you and gets where you're coming from and gets where you came from. And being a student who was also in the BFA, and you literally look around and no one looks like you, and Maya gets it as well, you know, like no one looks like you, and it's such a hard place to be at for 3 years, you know. And it's not like, for me, when it comes to, a lot of people know that I was in and out of like the program, like you didn't see me as often, and it really wasn't on purpose. It was just more of, I'm trying to feel comfortable, I'm trying to really find where it is my place is when it comes to the Hofstra's drama department. And I came in a year after most people did, where all the friend groups had created and everything was kind of like cemented in. And the only reason why I know that I made it throughout Hofstra was because I was a part of a program that was specifically for minority students, which is the NOAA program. I don't know if anybody on this call knows about the NOAA program, but it's the New Opportunities at Hofstra, and it's basically a program where they provide minority students with higher education. Now think about that. We have a program at our school that is specifically for providing minority students with higher education. That should say something to our community, and the fact that the Hofstra community and anybody that's in a position of power has been trying to dismantle our program because they do not feel like we deserve our education, you know. And it hurts to feel that that is how people really see us, that we don't deserve to be in this school, we don't deserve to do whatever it is that we want to do. And then when you go into a program like the drama department, you're trying to be able to open yourself, you know, you're always trying to be vulnerable, you're trying to let people see you. But how can they see you when nothing that we're doing within our when it comes to plays actually shows who we are as a person, as a person of color, where you feel as if you got the part because you're filling a quota, you know? And I feel like a lot of people, a lot of panelists on the board right now know what that feels like, where sometimes you feel like, at least for me, I never felt like sometimes I got the part because I was good enough. I felt like I got the part because I had to fill. You had to have a little bit of pepper when it comes to the salt, you know? And it hurts. Like how Kadeem said, where he never felt like he could be a lead. I was offered opportunities to be the lead, but it was because we were doing plays where it would look weird if a person of a Caucasian was playing a person of color, where it genuinely would look weird, you know? When we did hair, you can't have a person of color playing the character that I was playing. When I first started and I was in Little Shop, it was so odd for me because I came from a school where we did Little Shop and the urchins were people of color. And then to jump in and come to Hofstra, and for me to be the only person of color as an urchin, it was like, I didn't know what to do. And like, everyone was so talented, so I never knocked the situation because everyone literally deserved to be in the position that they were in. But when you look around and you're like, okay, I'm by myself, alone in this situation. You're sitting and you want to fit in, but you know you can't because you know who you are. You know that you're not trying to assimilate to someone else's culture. You're trying to be your full and true self. It becomes too much, so you try to distance yourself, and then people see you distancing as being rude and as being somebody who doesn't care. It's me literally just trying to protect what I have left and how much I want to endure in the years that are to come. So I'm glad that we really opened up the discussion so that everyone can get these things off of their chest, and you can understand that we work hard for our place in the drama department, but you might not see it as that way. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so. I mean, what is there to say? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, just yes. And yeah, China, I don't know if you wanted to jump in here too, because I know we were talking about that.
I'll just introduce myself really quickly. I'm China. I am now a senior, so class of 21. And it's insane because every single person who has spoken so far and what they have said has just been like, yep, been there. Yep, been there, heard that one. It's like, that's ridiculous. That it's like everything I feel like we have each said so far has been different specific things to us, but yet we all felt it. And it's just really upsetting. As I am glad that we have such a like diverse like group of people, just from female to male and also from BA to BFA, because I just think that I know that I didn't do the BFA because I felt like it would have held me in a place where I knew I shouldn't be. And my best friend Caitlin is in the BFA, and I get a lot of like information about it through her, and I know that it's very like specific, and I just couldn't, even now I just can't understand how a person of color would be able to succeed in such a like in a program where it's like they don't really have anything for you, but you can't say no. And that's really frustrating. It's like you can't leave out of this program. You can't do, non-department shows. You have to ask to go audition. Like, I was lucky that Cindy is my advisor. So I wasn't really in department doing auditions because she was able to bring me into other like types of performances that actually mattered to me and were very creative, and they had like nothing to do with like whether or not you fit like this kind of quota or you fit this shape. It was all about talent, and that mattered to me so much. And like Maya said, Cindy is one of the only professors I think who really cares. Like, we have professors who know what's going on, but they don't really say anything about it. We have a professor who is going to be directing a show that has to do with race, who instead of saying anything about the Black Lives Matter movement has been posting pictures of his pastries. Like, that's a problem. Like, it really feels like in this drama department, if you are a person of color, you can't get in. You just can't. They'll put you somewhere and you have to be satisfied with it, but we're not satisfied. It's not fair. So that's how I feel. And I've been kind of realizing that as this has been happening. I've been angry, I've been sad, but I've mostly been really motivated to make sure that people are getting this and that people are doing what they need to be doing.
Thank you, China. Tia is here. She's walking home from a march, so she'll be joining us soon. So if she just pops up, we'll let her.
Hi, friends.
Oh, there
Sorry. I'm waiting to catch an Uber, and then I can talk to all of you.
Okay, so when she gets in the Uber, she'll pop up, and we'll let her join the conversation.
I'm sorry, that was shocking. That was, oh my God.
Miss God.
I'm sorry. Hold on, let me start my video. Hold on. Hi. I don't know if any of you can see me, but I love all of you. I will be here in a second, shortly.
Come on, Eyeshadow, push through, T.
I just love the fact that she's like the only one that's like not together in this entire thing. It's very satisfying to watch. Love it.
I have a question for, I guess, the panel and you guys that organized it. Are we comfortable like naming names? Because it dances around the subject of accountability, and that's something that maybe the underclassmen haven't experienced or witnessed yet, and should keep an eye out for. Because if they know going into it, like, oh, Miss Tiger Rich has an issue with women, they're going to be able to say, boom, right there. Or Miss Alona Pierce. Like, are we comfortable with that, or should we keep it non-script? I don't know. I want to put.
I don't want to speak for Thea in China, but I feel like this is an open conversation. You know what I mean? Like, we're not on a I think the best way, and you guys please chime in, like, I feel like the best way for us all to grow is to grow from a place of complete transparency, because I feel like I can acknowledge the fact that I probably have not been fully perceptive to the things, especially as a BA. Like, that has not been as involved in the department. So Thea in China, I don't know what you think, but I personally think pop off.
I completely agree.
For the room, faculty is not on this call. Yeah, just so that everyone feels like they are, aware of that, and that, their experiences are going to be held in the confidence of this discussion. Also, I just want to, anything that gets brought up here, folks, you can, I feel like, feel free to talk about it amongst yourselves, when you're back on campus, when you're back in relation to each other. But in regards to people's personal information, just keep that stuff in confidence, and organize and do what you need to do and fight the fight, right? But just make sure that you are protecting people, because there are going to be folks who share things today who are still at the university, right? Who are still being marginalized by the system whilst they're inside, even amongst us trying to fight, right?
Yeah. I would also like to say that multiple people have reached out to me and asked me to record this because they would like to see it afterwards. However, if we do bring up something that is really personal, or we would like to name a professor or name someone in the university, just kind of give a little disclaimer, and I will easily pause the recording, and it will not be anywhere, and it will not go anywhere, and everything will be in complete confidence. So I'd just like to point that out too. Yeah.
Of course, thank you. So I didn't know with Tia joining us, I didn't know if Tia wanted to do a bit of an intro. I don't know if this is a little chaotic and insane. I don't want to like put her on the spot, but I don't know, maybe.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm not sure what you guys want for like an intro, but I'm Tia. I graduated last year. I don't know what else.
We've just been kind of talking about like people were like sharing experiences, sharing how they're like feeling, where their passions are with this movement right now, and their experiences, how their experience at Hofstra may have fueled that moving forward.
Got it. I think overall, I will first and foremost acknowledge that I think that I have lived a very privileged experience at Hofstra. I do think that is due to the fact that I was so heavily involved, and no, I do not think that you should have to be heavily involved in order to live an existence there that is calm and not stressful to your mental health. But I want to acknowledge that first, so that my existences and my experiences may be a bit different than some of my classmates, just due to the things that I did. One of the biggest things for me in the department was to be a present face at activity grant or at admitted students days, so that Black students knew that we were here. We weren't large, we weren't that mighty, but we were here. And like that was kind of my focus while I was there, is to make sure that when incoming students saw people, that they could at least see our faces. And that's kind of what I've always done and what I continue to do. I don't know if all of you are aware, but I'm still in communication with Royston about creating another panel like we did with APO 2 years ago, a year ago? Fuck it, I don't know what time is. Thank you, David, 2 years ago. Because I think that those things are also important to see alumni of color come back and really connect with the students here too. I don't really know what this intro is supposed to be about, but like those are kind of the things that like I'm still working on, and I want you guys to know that even as an alumni, as someone who has left and is still living life outside of school, I'm still thinking about this department and still thinking about the things that this department can do for other people. But that's kind of like my big focus right now, is coordinating with our alumni of color and Royston to create another panel so that it can be a yearly thing, and that we have alumni of all races and specialties in theater coming back to create the diversity that we need to see in theater in life. And that's basically what I have to say in that.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we were talking about. So that's great. I didn't know if the end trying to like jump in. I didn't know, do we want to see if anybody wanted to, because I know some people wanted to like jump in as to what maybe experiences people talked about in their intro. If people want to jump in there. I know David and Maya both were like, I have things to say, and we want to hear them. So if you want to, we can start there, or if China, you want to start with your question, we can also do that.
First, I want to say that the fact that I'm glad to hear that you brought up the fact that you're still involved and that all of you are still involved in this department, because I think it's really important that you are, which is something that I never thought about. Of course I haven't, like I just became a senior, but I never thought about the fact that I do kind of lean on all of you more than I lean on like my professors and like people in the department. And it was so easy to reach out to you guys. And I think it is like a little harder, I think, to reach out to other alum, specifically because you guys get it. So I'm really glad that you guys are still in the department. My question is, how has like this whole movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, how has that been going when you speak about it with your friends and your family? How has that worked out for you, basically? I know that when I talked to my parents about it, I was surprised, but my mom, she was ready to go and be part of the protest in Philadelphia because there were thousands of people there. And I was like, oh, I'm so scared for you, but yes. And I know that I went to a protest with my friends here in Long Island, and that was fantastic. And my closest friends, I have talked to them a lot about it. I know that the people who can't be with me, they are actively protesting. So I've been lucky to have a pretty strong support system, but I want to know if you guys have too. And anyway,
Sorry, to clarify, was that a question for us as alumni?
yes.
Okay. I personally, yes, I've been at multiple things over the past like 4 weeks. I think I go out like maybe 3 or 4 times a week to various things. And like today I was out with some people that I worked at Williamstown with my neighbors, with my roommate, and like I think like I personally, once again, I'm really lucky I have a really good support system. But I think it's also important to realize that there are a lot of other people that are doing things from their own homes, even if they can't go out, whether that's due to the fact that they are susceptible, like medically, or things like anxiety and big crowds. Like I think overall, the people in my life at least have been really, really receptive and supportive of everything that I've been doing. I don't know if you heard Tati or Maya, if you guys want to speak on that.
Tati, do you want me to? Cool. I can just slide on in there. T, just for me, can you repeat the last thing that you said that you want a response to, just so I make sure I'm not going off on a 20-minute long tangent?
No, I was just saying that I've had a very supportive group of family and friends going through all of these things with me, from my neighbors to my roommates to people that I've just done theater with. And so I think overall, like, the response has been well from every facet of my life. That's all I was saying, Maya.
Cool. I am heartened by, I think, the response of my greater artistic community at this time. I think there was definitely a time in which I did theater with a lot of people who like didn't care. I find I think it's kind of funny how we're in this moment of like, greater awareness and, people speaking up on the internet. And in some ways it can seem as though it is now socially, you know, there is some social cachet to being a person who is aware, right? You know, you've got 16 different book clubs, you know, reading like White Fragility and talking about it or whatever. And while that is well and good, I think that something that is necessary if we're really going to move forward and begin to be in coalition, true coalition with each other, is accountability and is atonement. I think that yes, everyone needs to be on their journey to being a better ally, and more aptly than an ally, an accomplice in tearing down racism, right? And making sure that like the institutions and strictures that have been put in place to oppress people are gone. But you can't just pick up a sledgehammer without at first acknowledging that at one point, you know, you held a sledgehammer to somebody else's head and said something that probably might not have been too cute. You know, I think that we've got to make sure that as we, you know, as we awaken and as we further, you know, go into our journeys towards liberation and towards working together for a common goal, we really do like self-reflection, and we're really able to be introspective about maybe harm that we perpetuated, maybe that we didn't even know, you know, because shame is a tool of white supremacy, right? Shame and guilt and feeling, oh God, I didn't say anything, or maybe I said something awful, and then now I'm not going to be able to know what to say, and then what if I say it wrong? So maybe it's better if I don't say anything at all. No. Say the thing, open your mouth, right? Because that's what people have been wanting you to do. But remember the times wherein an action that you took didn't necessarily serve the people who you're now fighting so hard for, and find a way to reckon with that. And that doesn't mean, you know, that you're like self-flagellating yourself and doing 1,000 mea culpas and just, you know, awash in guilt and like torn up, you know? But I do think that you've got to break your heart to heal it. And unlearning isn't always going to be Instagrammable. It's not going to be comfy. It's not always going to be fun. Matter of fact, most of the time it's not fun. I mean, you know, it's not going to be cute, and you might lose a lot. And I think that like, as we begin to have this conversation of folks who are in positions of power and privilege, and that doesn't mean just authority, right? You know, that also means like, you know, your greater Hofstra community who, you know, is not a person of color, people who, you know, people who aren't Black, people who like are cis, right? There are things that you're going to have to get ready to lose, you know? There are ways that you are going to have to abdicate from systems of privilege to lift up those who have been like marginalized and oppressed. And I think that's something that I'm seeing in my greater artistic community is that abdication. And that is really lovely because, you know, it doesn't always come.
So I'll add on to that. About like maybe 2 weeks ago, I had another one of these discussions within the company that I work with. And everyone was just expressing, you know, their personal stories and how they felt during this time. And I think one important, truly important portion of this movement is people, specifically Latin people, they need to understand you are Black. And I think it is one of the, like Maya said, it's one of those, you have to break your heart. You have to unlearn things and relearn them in order for you to truly understand who you are as a person. But one woman was telling me how she was fighting for this cause, and she was talking about Black Lives Matter, and people in her family just stopped speaking to her, like entirely. They just didn't want to speak to her because she was standing up for something that she understood, and she understood her history and her own heritage. And I think as an Afro-Latina, for myself, I had to learn my Puerto Rican side, you know, and who that was and where we came from and how everyone came together and how I'm mixed with Taino, Spaniards and also African. You know, you really have to go in depth with who you are to truly understand this. And then once you get that support, if that's who you are. And I think at this point, you can't sit around and pretend like you do not know what's going on. You can't sit around and not see the people who have targets, legitimate targets on their back, you know? And it really aggravates me to a point where, you know, everyone sees on Instagram and whatever social media you're looking for, people are still holding up Confederate flags, or people are telling them, I'm going to teach my children to hate you or your specific people. And it doesn't make sense to me when you're being overwhelmed with such information that you can still sit within your own hatred and your own, and I feel like it's an inferiority complex, because what else makes you feel that way? And I don't know anyone personally that is an extreme racist, or, you know, has those genuine feelings, or have lived with someone who's racist and then has unlearned those situations. And I really wish that I could speak to someone who understands that side for me to fully understand, why is it that you cannot simply listen, hear, and understand what it is that we're going through as a community, and understand why it is that people are going outside to protest. I unfortunately have not been able to go outside and protest for, you know, family reasons and trying to keep everyone safe. And I truly want to. They've had protests, and I live in Far Rockaway. They've had protests by the beach. I know that they've been having them basically everywhere that they can, and I appreciate that. And I know a lot of people who are. But I think we also need to understand that protesting isn't the only way that we can actually get this movement across. Everyone's been posting information about signing petitions, sending out emails, making phone calls, learning. And like you said, I feel like people don't need to read or have a book club in order for you to feel like you need to learn. There's a lot of people holding panels that are like, you have to read White Fragility before you can actually join this panel and talk about certain things. I feel like Maya said, hold yourself accountable. Understand when you feel certain things, why is it that you feel that way? What is it really inside of you that makes you feel like we do not matter as humans, not even a person of color, as a human, you know? And so I just really want people to sit and think about it and think as if like that was your family member, even if you're Caucasian and your lineage runs back where everyone is, you know, the same color. What if that was your mother? What if that was your brother? What if that was someone that you cared about, you know, and truly and deeply felt for? How would that make you feel? How does that make us feel for 400 years with situations like that, you know? And even before that, because we don't even count what was happening before that time period. So we just really need to take a second and hold ourselves accountable and unlearn and relearn what is the truth. What is the truth? Yeah.
Just to pop in, I think that was Tati. I think Tati and Maya, you both hit something very important on the head. Maya, you brought up shame, and I think it's hard, in particular, as people of color, especially alumni. I was talking to a current sophomore of color, and I was telling her that I feel awful because while I was here, I came in guns a-blazing to Hofstra. I truly did. I was like, bitch, I got this. Done. It's the subway rap. Like, it's over. But that's not what happened. And I'm ashamed that that's not what happened. I think, call it naivete, whatever. It was an insurmountable force that I wasn't expecting. But I should have seen coming because historically, whatever. But it's hard to look back and be like, wow, I was quiet when I should have spoken up, and now the next class has to deal with it. And the next class after them the next 4 classes got to fucking deal with this. And it feels awful knowing that we didn't do anything a bit more active. Yeah, we had conversations. Yeah, we made reports. Yes, this, that, and the third. But the fact of the matter is we weren't mobilized or organized as a unit to create effective change. We oftentimes, I feel like anything we brought up was slapped with a little Band-Aid and just set aside. So that's really hard. And Tati, I think, everybody's gotta understand that right now, you shouldn't have to depend on your proximity to Blackness to care about what's happening to people all over the world. You shouldn't have to, like, in particular with like the Latino community, we are all part of the diaspora. We have those roots in us. We have to understand that. And there's this whole concept in Latin culture, it's called bettering the race, mejor la raza, and it's just getting more light skins. That's all it's talking about. It's awful, it's gross. So Latinos in particular, we gotta speak up and we gotta remain in solidarity with our Black brothers and sisters. But also, I don't believe we should have to be like, oh, what if that was my mother? No, that's somebody's mother. You shouldn't need, it's not dependent on them being yours, because it's not about you. It's about somebody else. It's about the people around you. It's about the people in your class that you may not talk to, that's fine. You may not like, that's also fine. Or you may love, that's great. Like, it's about so much more than you. You need to take the I in it. I took a race relations class with Bradley Philippi at school, and one dumb thing he said, literally once, and I thought it was the dumbest shit. It was like, there's no I in race. And he's kind of right. Yeah, I don't like that it's a fucking like a quote you'd find on like Etsy, but like, he's very right. We have to remove the self about these discussions, unless of course you're a person of color and you're like advocating for yourself and your family. But as white allies in particular, I don't need to hear, speaking for myself, also, excuse me if I get aggressive. I don't know, I'm just very passionate and it reads as angry. A lot of people have told me that.
Hey, don't tone police yourself today.
I know, it's hard.
Nobody's asking you to do that.
Don't do that.
But fuck, now I lost where I was going. But you need to remove yourself. I've been saying it a lot in the APL group chat. Sorry, y'all deal with it a lot, but it's time to put that white guilt to use. It's time to use that. We don't need to hear I'm sorry or ooh, yikes, or how can I help? We need to see you do it. We don't hold all the answers. We don't hold the answers for, oh, you can help by signing this. Yeah, that's literally just one thing. Are you done? No. One stroke and you're finished? No. You need to get active fundamentally on every single level, on an interpersonal level, with your relationships in class, in your family, just on social media with the people you follow. Ethically, in terms of like consuming things, like, oh, is this a company that supports Black Lives Matter, or do they fund Trump or something like that? Like, listen, I love Chick-fil-A. I'm a piece of shit. I love Chick-fil-A. I've been trying so hard, and this, up until recently, this is the first time I've been able to kick it. But I had to reach that point where I was like, yo, this is fucked. I cannot do this anymore. We all have to have those conversations with ourselves. It's the accountability that you mentioned.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Wait, who's
Sorry.
talking?
Somebody else was talking.
Go ahead.
Okay. I also just want to point out, kind of in response to David's point, there's a lot of stuff that happened in like my 4 years there that I didn't even realize, because so much of it is learned and you just accept it as normal. So I think there's a lot that like we as people of color in the department have to learn to speak up about too, because sometimes things happen and you just accept them as normality because you honestly don't know better. It's been taught to you from the time that you were small, and as you progress through schooling, things are just normal. So like, for example, David, that meme that came out with you, Kadeem, and Mario in it, that was something that I looked at, and for a second, sorry, my video's not on, hold on. Hi. And so for a second I looked at it and I was like, I don't get it, but whatever, and just kind of kept moving. And like, it wasn't until recently that I had to look back at that and be like, this is a really fucked up meme, and I don't know why it happened. But in that moment, it was something that it's like, you're so used to shit like this going on that you have no clue what's going on. And like, I had to sit with that for a second and think like, Kadeem, who was one of my best friends from school, who I would happily fight for in a hot minute, you know? And it's like, we have learned such whiteness that we don't even sometimes know that it is wrong. And I think that that is kind of the action part on our classmates and colleagues that are not people of color to really point out, to be like, hey, this is an issue. Because honestly, sometimes y'all, like, there are things that I look back on, I'm like, I had no idea. Because as a student of color, for the most part, especially a first generation student, your nose is to the ground and you are just booking it to get through and get out and do it as well as you can, that you look over some shit. And for those of you who are not necessarily doing that, I think that's the action piece for you, is to realize what those things are and bring light to them, because sometimes we're too busy. We are really just trying to get through and get a degree and get moving and get going because that's how society works. So I just wanted to point that one out as well.
Going off of that, everything that Tia just said, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. When when David reposted that meme, like, it really just brought me back because it was so, like, it was so mind-blowing. Hold on, 1 second.
He just left the screen, but Kadeem and I were having a conversation a week or so ago, and he mentioned that like students of color have to.
So sorry. I just I needed to stay on that roll because there's a lot of noise coming at me, and I needed to like stay on that path. Okay, when David reposted the meme, it literally was like I was reliving like the whole thing, because I was literally in that room when we made the decision to make that like a meme thing. That meme was supposed to be like a PR thing, and I was on PR my last 2 years at Hofstra, and I remember that being like a thing, like a conversation, it was like an ongoing thing. But I like brushed it off. I was like, haha, you silly white people with your humor. Like, that was just, that's one of those things that you just learn how to get along with. But the other day, when David reposted it again, I literally wanted to kick myself, because I was like, how could you allow this to happen? Like, I kind of had to go back and be like, okay, how did we get here? Because I kind of, within myself, I know that I know better. But then I was like, yeah, you know better, but those people don't. And when, I guess also in the context of a show and talking about like things that are stressful and things that, people of color within the department have to deal with all simultaneously, I guess, when it came to like down to it, I didn't really give a fuck. I was just like, I'm here to do a show as an actor. It is what it is. Let me just do that. Which, yes, but at the same time, the realization or the respect for your actors as individual people. Yes, they are playing characters, but they are also first and foremost people first, So like that in that moment was really just emphasized to me. And 1000% what Tia said, like I'm also a first generation student. My parents are not from America. So a lot of the things that I learned about race, about what it means to be Black in America and Black in the scope of the world, I had to go through it and I had to learn on my own. Because as for those of you who don't know, like Black people who came to this country who were not born here, they kind of had to learn like a separate set of rules. And growing up under that, whilst also being an American, you're kind of like, it's kind of the best of both worlds, because you are in touch with, you know, this, with American culture, but also maybe this more foreign, like indigenous culture. But also because they've not gone through it, they don't really know like the nuances of racism. You know, the racism is not just calling someone the N-word. Racism is not just, you know, it's more often than not, it's covert. And that is something that I very, very much had to go through many, many times before I was able to, you know, really, really get that. Even now, to this day, people will say things and it will take me like a couple seconds before I'm like, wait a second, that was not right, you know? And I hate that. I hate that so much. But I know that it's not my doing, you know? What we do as a result of that, that is what I'm responsible for. So I just wanted to speak to that point.
I just want to, sorry,
No,
I just want to really quickly add on top of that, because everybody's talking about accountability, but specifically for us as people of color. And I absolutely agree, where it's just like, when you are a first generation student, you are very like nose to the ground trying to get through it. But there are some things that do make you look up. And I noticed that when you do look up, you realize that you're outnumbered. And that was something that I feel like I struggled with, where I'm going to start like naming some students like that I feel like were affected by this. But
at this university, we have to project this whiteness. We have to change the way we speak, the way we interact in class, in order to be successful and navigating successfully. I think that is indicative of what Tia mentioned earlier, the whiteness that we put on ourselves and that we enact within ourselves. And I think it's important for especially the minority students that are on this call and that are still at the school to start becoming more self-aware of that and actively fighting against that, of like, oh, I'm not gonna say this because this might disrupt the class. I remember in modern when we were reading Funny House and Royston kept saying it and nothing was said until Tia said something. I know I was in that class, Kadeem was in that class. Tati, you were in that class too, right? Tati was, other minorities were in this class, and we just sat there like, but nothing was said until Tia said something. And of course, it's Royston. He can be problematic, whatever. He is when something was said. So I think we just have to remain, yeah, it's an accountability thing, sure, but we also have to just remain steadfast in the fact that our voice matters. And I think we've been saying like, oh, it feels like it doesn't matter. Sis, you said something along the lines of like, oh, that made me uncomfortable. And the next day he was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Got you. I just could not remember.
You're good. You mentioned, you either emailed him or said something to him after class. I can't remember. But a lot of the times people aren't going to listen to our voices, but that doesn't make anything we say less important. It's not a nihilistic thing. Like, what you say matters. It's just, in an institution like this, you're going to have to say it a lot louder and a lot more often than you would anywhere else. Because as Maya said, it's a PWI, a predominantly white institute. So we got to scream. I know personally, my mom growing up told me, listen, you're going to have to work twice as hard, twice as long, and twice as ferociously just because of who you are as a person, as a queer mixed man. You are already at the disadvantage. You're back 20 yards and they're 40 yards ahead of where we are. So that's just something we have to keep in mind.
And I think also, just to kind of piggyback on a lot of what's already been said by China and by David, in regards to like really speaking up when something makes you uncomfortable, also just not giving permission for people to think that things are okay around you. Like a lot of literature that goes around about like harassment, gender-based harassment in the workplace, you know, things like that. It's like if somebody makes a joke about something, don't laugh, ask them what they mean. And I think that especially because, you know, so much of that like cavalier, oh, we're artists, we can, you know, say stuff and it's gonna be fine because we're, you know, we're talking about the craft, or we're talking about this or that, or I'm in a play and my character thinks this, so I'm gonna think like this a little bit for like the next 3 weeks or whatever. Don't be afraid not to laugh. And don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, and also to make other folks uncomfortable with the fact that you are not going to participate or tacitly just like let them put like a microaggressive energy out into the space. Because a lot of times, like I think we talk a lot about, you know, intent versus impact, right? And maybe somebody's, you know, intention is not to be as harmful, you know, as it felt being the person that is harmed. But if you notice the impact of what someone said to somebody, I think a lot of times you have to let it be about the impact and not necessarily let it be about, well, you know, I didn't mean to, or it was, you know, not as bad as it could have been, right? Because the fact that the thought emerged out of a mouth means that some of that in some way, you know, is in there. And so much of this stuff is ingrained. So much of this stuff is learned. So much of this stuff is like in the blood and in everyone's blood memory. I think when we talk about oppression and we talk about marginalization, like for over 400 years, white people around the world globally have been made to think that they are allowed to own everything, to conquer always, to conquer in an audition room, and to conquer in scene study, and to conquer in a job interview, and to conquer in the class discussion about Funny House of a Negro or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or Ruined or whatever it is, right? Made to think that their opinion needs to be the one that's listened to the loudest because, of course, why not? I mean, you know? But I think really, and especially like as artists, I think that a lot of us, you know, and hopefully all of us in whatever way we want to come to this craft are really working to like stretch and work out that empathy muscle, right? You know, as a person who, as people who work in the theater, who work in the arts, so much of what we do, or what we should be doing every day, is really seeking to, you know, empathize with the people who we're hoping our work can reach, empathize with the folks around us. And I think that, you know, a lot of folks have brought up, you know, listening today, and that's really important, you know, listening and not feeling as though you have to defend yourself. Because like it or not, you are at some point gonna say something or think something or react in a way that is perpetuating oppression, that is perpetuating racism, even if you don't mean to, even if you think that that's the furthest thing from you as a person. You know, you are compassionate, you're kind, and your best friend is Black, and your roommate is queer, and this, that, and the third. Maybe you're even one or two, you know, you might have other intersections in your identity, you know, but that doesn't preclude you from racism. It doesn't preclude you from the privilege of being able to sit silently in certain situations. And I think that, especially, you know, like even like college in general, I feel like lots of times people market it as, you know, you're going to go to college and you're going to be able to express yourself and learn who you are and all of that stuff. But really, you know, any institution is an institution, right? And there are going to be rules and strictures already in place because of the rules and strictures that are in place in the world outside of it. And so I think sometimes, to the point of like when you're in class and somebody, and like the instance that you all were talking about with Royston, you know, and not necessarily feeling empowered, right, to say something because of already, you know, what's going on in the air. I think that, you know, especially people who, you know, are not people of color, like white folks, you got to make it your job to be loud and obnoxious. You got to make it your job to be loud and obnoxious, because the people of color in these classes, your Black classmates and your Latinx classmates and your Asian classmates, are not in a position to be able to advocate for themselves in the same way that you are. Even if they are the most, like, I work in admissions and I am best friends with the dean of this college and da 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 da, they're still already not, you know, in a, there is a privilege there, but you inherently, because of whomst you are, have more of it. So really get used to leveraging it. And I think that, especially because we're, you know, moving this conversation into like, what can folks do who are still at the university? Like, how do you do this inside of that school, and especially inside of that department? To the point about Royston, like, a lot of these folks aren't gonna get it until you say it and you keep saying it. Because I speaking for myself, you know, I left Hofstra, I was done in 2016, and like, these are instances and conversations that like I had when I was there, and like things that I dealt with, like being told by leadership that, you know, I should be, you know, grateful to be cast in a Shakespeare because people of color didn't do Shakespeare and aren't meant to do Shakespeare, right? Or not being wigged for a show in a semester where another white student was wigged and it wasn't an issue. You know, being made to go the extra mile in an educational theater program where folks should already be going the extra mile for you because you're there to learn, right? And like, so the fact that now is the time that a lot of this action is going to happen, and that it's now on the backs of folks who, you know, are still in Hofstra, I think, I think that white folks especially, and people who are seeking to be allies, really need to make sure that you are the ones, you know, knocking on all the doors during office hours and talking over your time about how what was said in class a week ago, 2 weeks ago is not all right. Because chances are there is a person of color going to their advisor, and chances are their advisor is probably going to ignore them and probably not going to write down whatever it is that was said to them that was wrong. And, you know, there are instances that are good, you know, I mean, Cindy is a very good instance, you know, and I think she tries really hard, but at the end of the day, you know, she's going to slip up too. And she's going to have to own that when she slips up. You know what I mean? I think, you know, there are lots of classes that are not necessarily racist by design, right? Like movement class isn't racist by design because a lot of what you need to do involves like your own self-inquiry and your own journey. And I mean, sometimes there are classes wherein you get to bring in your own work, right? And I feel like those are classes, and you get to develop your own things to perform. And like, those are classes that you feel like you might be able to have a little more power over. But like in these history of drama classes, and in like the modern where you're reading, you know, Ibsen 16 times, and then Chekhov in scene study the other half of your day, I encourage you to really get inquisitive about what a decolonized drama curriculum, you know, could look like. Really, really start looking to playwrights of color who are writing now. I remember when I was in school, I don't know if they still have the updated anthologies, but the anthologies from the Humana Festival that are in the Cyberary, I don't know if those books are still there. But the Humana Festival is, it's like a new play festival that's run out of Louisville? It's, I think, Louisville? Yeah, Louisville, right? Yeah, Louisville. And they generally do a lot of like new work. Also just in terms of like APO wanting to curate more things for the library, look into getting copies of the Kilroy's List. The Kilroy's List is an anthology compilation that's got lots of like new monologues and scenes by, you know, women and trans people of color and non-binary people of color. And I mean, if you're looking for like new stuff to bring into your auditions, bring that in. Like, just because, oh good, Allie says that they do have the Kilroy's monologue book. Allie thinks. But bring in new stuff, because I think also a lot of the times, some of these professors aren't really still working in New York, right? And some of these professors, you know, they is one way that like you can say, hey, the interest is here, you know?
Thank you all so much for sharing that. I'm going to open this up to everyone in the call, including the panelists. My question is, how do we keep the movement going, and where do we go from here? But before I say that, Cameron, you raised your hand, so if you would like to turn on your video, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to talk about classes. Is it possible to be unrecorded for a minute?
We're just really trying to get all the way through. I think my experience as a production major is a bit different. I mostly speak from what I saw with Sophia, who is one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. And sometimes I feel like her work was judged so harshly and like with way more expectation than her white peers. And when they were not doing the same level of commitment and work too. And I think it's difficult. One, it's difficult being a Black person in the theater in general, but two, it is really difficult being a Black person on the other side of the curtain in theater. A lot of technical positions are held by men, and they're usually white. In stage management, I have just recently met a lot of Black female stage managers because we've all been having these conversations during this time. But for the most part, a lot of stage managers are also white women. So it's this weird thing of learning. The code switching that goes on is extensive, absolutely extensive, to make sure that you are communicating as clearly as possible and presenting yourself in as non-threatening a way as possible. Because the fact of the matter is, your body as a Black person is automatically seen as a threat. Regardless of whether these people you're speaking to believe themselves to be anti-racist or not, your body is seen as a threatening presence because of how society has formed its way. So I think it's been the most difficult part about being on the production side of it is you're now dealing with your actors in your room, your director, the producers, everybody that is on a design team. And this is just like real world experience as well. Like, you are now having to navigate these 6 different rooms as the pinpoint. In school, I think it was more, a lot of it was tone. I think a lot of it for us was tone. And I can't speak for Sophia because she is not here, but I think one thing that all Black students have in common is the fact of how we make ourselves seen. Like, even in this moment of me trying to articulate my thoughts to you and to all of you, it's how do I get this across in the most clear and succinct way that I possibly can so that you understand me, even in the tone and the inflection of my voice. And this was one of the first things I was ever critiqued about as a stage manager, both at Hofstra and in high school, was how do you fix your voice so that the masses understand you? How do you project what you want to say in a clear way so that everybody understands you? And really what that truly comes off to mean is, how do you be assertive but not aggressive? And it's like, you have to really, really think about what aggressive means when you are a Black person. in a white space, because even just having a normal conversation, you're automatically seen as aggressive. The slightest bit of passion in anything you talk about is seen as aggression, which puts us in this space of having to constantly police yourself over and over and over again, to the point where you kind of sit there with yourself and you're like, I don't even know if I made sense to me, because I wouldn't believe me if I was talking to me, but this is how people receive you. It's difficult to speak about the Black existence or the student of color existence in the production side of the department, because we didn't exist. We don't exist. Especially at Hofstra, we're barely there. I had one person to look up to, and that was Noah Silva, and God bless him, because he is out here doing the damn thing, being one of the most successful stage managers to ever fucking walk Broadway right now. But it's difficult. And I know that maybe this is not necessarily the answer that you want or the answer that can help, but it's hard to speak about this when I don't even have the alumni records to pull for it. I don't have that at all. I literally have Noah. And I get very emotional when speaking about Noah, because he has such a place in my heart as like this presence of a student of color that has gone on to be so successful in stage management, in technical theater, but he's the only one I've got. Like, that's it. And in my class, it was me and Sophia. So I don't even have much to give to the classes below me. It is really difficult, Sarah. And I don't really know how to articulate that for you, except for the fact that, like, my heart really yearns to see more people of color on the technical side of theater, because I think a lot of times Black bodies are only seen as performative. And that is really hard to get through, because no one believes that you do anything other than perform, because why else would you? If you're not on stage for the enjoyment of the white audience, what are you doing? And it's really hard to even kind of like get through all of that. There's a lot of conversation these days about Black and brown bodies that are behind the curtain, because we're there and people don't see us. And I think that's why we've started to be so loud about it and so just like present. And Sarah, I don't even have like a clear and concise answer to your question. And I totally understand what you're asking me. And I love that you're asking it to me, but I don't have the numbers to even give you an answer. And that's the problem, is that I don't have the numbers. And that's not just a Hofstra problem. That is a nationwide issue that is going to take way more than one conversation to fix. But that's kind of what I got for you, babe.
I agree with you so much. And I feel like I'm always, as a Black woman, trying to figure out how I'm being perceived. And especially with acting, I feel like often I have to try to make sure that I'm not being an angry Black woman, even when my monologue requires anger. I still have to fix that. And I find it very interesting that I have this monologue that's like my go-to monologue about being cheated on. And I used to do it like, oh, you cheated on me, like I'm angry, like, you know. But I started changing it so that it's more like, oh, you cheated on me. And it's like I tear up and I cry or whatever, and I like internalize it so much more. And that gets so much better feedback. Like, that's when I get cast. That's when I get called back. And it's like, but what was wrong with it before? Because if a white person did this monologue, I'm sure they'd be pretty angry with it. And that alone just really bothers me, thinking that, oh, because I'm not the angry Black woman, now I'm okay to get cast. And even with type in general, like type is something that's really difficult when I do auditions. Because let's be real here, I was never going to get cast as a Valley girl or a British person or a Russian person or a Delta Nu, to keep it 100. And it's like, and that's something that's hard, because I often feel like I'm already off the cast list before I even audition. There are times where I've been like, you know, I'm not going to audition. Like, I didn't even audition for Legally Blonde as much as my friends pushed me to do it, because I was like, I don't feel like I can get a role here, so I'm just not going to audition. And I hate that I had to do that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really tiring having to deal with that all the time, thinking, am I going to get a part for this? I'm called back, but am I really going to get this part? Or is this white girl who fits the description going to get it over me because of my skin color?
I kind of want to piggyback off of that, just about to say a teacher's name, so can this stop recording for a little bit?
On this call who are still in university and, you know, trying to fight the good fight. You cannot let them take that from you. You cannot let them take that from you. Your individuality, the ways in which you relate to the world, the communities that you come from are so important. Your intersections matter. Your identities are sacred. You are sacred. And as we've already discussed, you know, this university is going to try its damnedest to beat that shit out of you. And they can't.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. Because you're magical, okay? Yeah. You're beautiful. I love you. And I figured it would need to be said at some point, but I wanted to say it now, especially for the recording, so everybody knows. Okay? Okay?
Before Kat speaks, can I just see everybody's face for a hot second?
Yeah.
If you have the ability to turn on your camera, can I just see your face for a second?
Oh, damn, y'all really here.
I fucking love this. Thank you so much. I just want to see all your faces for a whole hot minute.
Okay, let's see.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and present with a conversation that is extremely difficult to hear and to have and to share. And I am extremely thankful that this is happening, and I'm extremely thankful that all of you are here. I just wanted to see everybody's face for a second to like really get it across that this is how these things work. This is how we make change, because everybody is here and everybody is listening and everybody is working. This is how we make things work. And I am so thankful that all of you are here and that you have taken the time over the last, it's been 2 hours and 10 minutes that we've been on this call, and literally go fucking everybody here. But I'm so thankful for this moment. And I want you all to realize that you have taken the time at this point in time in history to take a stand and be like, we will change how things are working. This is how change works. And it is difficult and it is hard, and it will not be done tomorrow. It will not be done by next semester, and it sure as hell won't be done by next year. But this is how it works. And I want you all to know that. This is really fucking hard. So if you need, when you're done here, if you need to cry, go fucking cry. If you need a drink, get your drink on. Do what you need to do. But I thank you for being present and aware with the conversations that are happening. I thank you for listening to your Black classmates and colleagues and students. And I just needed to see all of your faces so that you fully understand that that is where this is coming from, okay? I love you all dearly. I know Kat had her hand up. You can turn your videos off now if you want to.
Yeah, hey guys. So I am very, very aware that I am a very white passing person, and I've dealt with that my entire life. I'm 100% Hispanic. As far as I'm aware, all of my family is from Puerto Rico, so I have no idea what mixes of stuff there are in there. So I've lived that entire life of moving from place to place, not having roots, not really looking into my roots. And since I had that white passing privilege, just going along with it. And so in a lot of things, especially I spent most of my years in Georgia, in like a rural part of Canton, Georgia, where I just shoved that completely under the radar and kind of let things happen and let people say things and put on my blinders and keep going forward. And it didn't get to me until coming to Hofstra and having a couple interactions with teachers that I'm gonna say some stuff. So if we can just like pause that recording.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about Hispanics being cast, and I feel like it's really problematic when white people who are just white are cast as Hispanics. I think it's a real issue. I came from a high school that was predominantly white, same as Hofstra, just about with diversity. we did La Casa de Bernarda Alba, and it was all people of color. And like, there's a lot of Black people, a lot of Hispanics, and that was it, you know? And I feel like often the excuse is, oh, but there's not enough people of color, or, oh, they didn't audition. They audition. They're here. We are here. And I feel like that's a very poor excuse to make an excuse for your bias and for your white privilege. And I think it should be normalized to say that, you know what, I'm not racially appropriate for this role, so I'm not going to take it. Or I don't feel comfortable being called back. Thank you for the opportunity, but I should not get this part. Somebody else who's more racially appropriate should get this part. So that's all I wanted to mention, because I'm really tired of seeing that. And when I bring it up to other white people, they say, oh, but you know, Hispanics are pale. It's okay. Or even like if it's like an Asian character, oh, but Asians are pale. Yeah, but like they're also people of color, which you are not. So that's a real issue. But yeah, that's.
Thank you for mentioning that, Cameron, because we did Bernarda here. We did it. And it was like, granted, it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's set in Spain, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Granted, it's set in Spain, and they're Castilian, like, yes. But like.
And I think the department, and Cameron, I stage managed this show.
Okay.
The department picked it because it is an all-female show, and like it was able to give parts. So I understand that from an academic standpoint, but you are correct. You are most absolutely correct in the fact that like we should be able to program shows that we can cast people that are racially appropriate for. Do I stand by their decision to pick Bernarda for that season for the students that we had? Absolutely, I do. Because I do think that giving, 10 to 12 female roles in all-female show that was directed by a Hispanic director, I'm down with that. I'm okay with that. For what we had and what we pulled from, absolutely. And I think that overall the show went really well. But I don't think that your point is incorrect in the slightest. That is definitely something that we as a greater theatrical family need to work on.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely need to work on at West Side Story. But
it was also paired with, there's a dance piece based on Bernarda. The dance department did it at the same time, and they did like, you can only have so many students of color in each grade, but they did use it. And again, Diane spearheaded that because she danced in the piece originally when it was produced. It just circles back to when you give people platforms and opportunity, they're going to perpetuate a culture of doing that back. It's just, you take and you build upon to give more.
Danette killed it. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, Danette really, sis, there's recordings. We'll get one to you because it was powerful. It was powerful. It was wonderful to see Black dancers like that. I would just like to say something to reiterate what people have been saying, like Maya and Tia in particular. Thank you to everybody who's in this call. Thank you to everybody who's taking the time to listen to what we have to say and responding and feeling it very viscerally. I know I do. I know we all do, actually. Everybody on the screen right now does. But something that I think we have to be wary of, and I don't know if we all do it intentionally or not, but it's the performative allyship. Because yes, we can see that and get up, we can see something and we can experience something, and we do things that we know are wrong, and we'll like be like, yeah, okay, yeah, that was wrong, and then that's not enough. Like, no, don't just acknowledge it, change it, do something more about it. Coming to a conversation like this and watching it it's not a full step, it's half a step. You have to learn from this, take it and use it. That's the full step. It's not just, oh, I saw this not a movement, or not a moment, a movement thing. I saw that, yeah, no, I got, that's enough activism for today. No. It's never enough. Never. Regardless of whoever you are, if you are Black, if you're a person of color, if you're white, nothing is ever going to be enough because things aren't going to be changing for a while. So you need to do more. You need to do more than just feel. You need to do more than just respond. You need to get your name on petitions, co-sign letters, go out there, march, organize, do more of this. Ask the people of color in your life, what can I do to give back? That if you truly can't think of anything, we'll bear that burden. I know I'll personally bear that burden. I've had to do it constantly the last couple of months. It's just another thing that we have to work twice as hard for. I think do not perform it for us. Show it to us. Because I'm very passionate about this, because I'm seeing a lot of drama majors in particular, not just at this school, overall, just black square, retweet, done. No, it's not enough. That's not it. And we know when it's false. I, in particular, know when it's false because I'm seeing whose names are on what. And I see whose names are in this call that aren't on anything that has been released in relation to the drama department in particular. So I urge everybody, do more than just listen. Do. I'm begging from the bottom of my heart. Do. I need you to do something. The women on this screen need you to do something. Kadeem needs you to do something. People across the nation need you to do. Talking about it is not enough. This is just a quarter of a step, truly. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Gabe, I don't want to, if you want to.
Sorry. Really quick. Building on what David said, I think another thing that my white peers, my white classmates, people that I've just met, people that I could easily be best friends with and friends with for the rest of my life. Another thing that it's just me, is when people come to me to tell me something. Yes, I am Black, and yes, we are friends, but I am not the magical, going to solve everything, give you all the solutions and answers. You cannot put that burden on me, because I am just a scared child who's facing this world. I am not some strong, the strong woman stereotype and stuff like that. You can't come to me to solve your problems or to relieve your guilt. You need to actually do something that's going to help, because I cannot help. I am the oppressed. I cannot do anything. Especially since I just got to this school. That's another thing. I just got to this school, and people are already so what are you going to do? I'm what am I going to do? I don't even know all the drama department's teachers' names. I'm not going to do anything. What are you going to do? You've been in this department. You were in the department for the whole year. I just got here this semester. I am not the solver of these issues. You guys really have to take that responsibility. Of course, you can check in with me. You can ask me how I'm doing, yada, yada, how to support me. But what I want from you is to take change for yourself. I want you to do the change yourself. And you can't depend on, your Black peers to, do that for you. When you see protests, what white people need to do at protests is be in between the police and the Black people. You guys really have to come forth and help us and support us, so that, I don't end up not being cast for the rest of the school years, because they're oh wow, she talks out too much, we don't want her in our cast, she's trifling, she's a troublemaker, because that's not fair, because I'm just advocating for my own life. I'm advocating for myself, because I care. If I didn't care about the drama department, I wouldn't be here. I say, let them fools suffer. Let them go out in the real world and get slapped by a Black person. Okay? So but I care about the department, and I do want to see it change. But we need to work on it together. You can't just be talking. All talk is nothing. I know we're actors. That's what we do. And we oftentimes can spruce up our words to sound like we're going to do something and then not do it. But we cannot act about this, okay? You have to be serious. You have to be committed.
It's really important, especially as Black people, for us to be passionate about our cause. And even coming on here tonight, I was really scared, thinking, depending on who sees this video, I'm not going to get cast. And that's still something that really scares me. I'm not going to get cast, or think I'm hard to work with, or whatever it may be. But I'm a senior. It's been hard at certain times throughout these 4 years, and it would be so irresponsible of me as a senior to not speak up on the issues when I know there is somebody else who feels the same exact way. So if I can help that one person, then that's all that matters.
Yeah. And Cameron's
Also,
confused.
can I just? I was gonna. No, you're fine. I was just gonna say. Also, if like, first of all, Cameron, I didn't realize you were a senior. Oh my god, I like watched you come in. Oh my god, you so grown up. No, but I'm pretty sure that if you're being blackballed by the department on the grounds of this, like, I'm pretty sure that's like someone should be alerted. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's a little illegal.
yeah.
It's a little lawless. So we'll fight.
Yeah, like even before this, I'm gonna be a sophomore, and like even before this whole thing happened, I was like scared that like I wasn't gonna get into BFA because of my own skin color. But at the same time, even if I'm just a BA, I can be as successful as someone else in the BFA. So like now, I kind of don't have. I mean, I'm still kind of attached to that fear, but like not as much. And you know, if someone sees this and I don't get the BFA, oh well, I'm fighting for what needs to be changed. I'm fighting for what needs to be done. And if you're not going to take that action, so be it.
Let your work speak, baby. Because no matter what, the best thing I ever heard was your work speaks for itself. It does. You are in competition with yourself. Period. That's it.
No one puts a label on it.
Exactly.
Besides yourself.
Just you need to do you. Fuck the rest.
On that, I think we've been here a little longer than expected, which is absolutely fine.
Which is awesome.
But I think we're going to wrap it up now. I know there's a lot of people who have more to say or another conversation in the future. We just have to see how that'll go. But we do want to say thank you so much to like everyone who came and everyone who spoke and everyone who listened. And just like David said, take it and use it and change it. Like we need to make sure that a conversation like this doesn't need to happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, oh yeah, Tia, and then
I just want, after Maya reads, if I could have the alumni and students, really appreciate that.
I'll make you the host of the meeting.
Thank you.
If that works. Cool. Awesome.
Hi. As it's been said, we love y'all. Thank y'all. Y'all are beautiful. Before I read this, I didn't write it. Audre Lorde did, and she really does that all the time. If you are looking for an incredible Black, queer, womanist, theorist, communist, socialist bae, please do some research and grab a couple of her books of essays and poetry. I'm gonna post a link to the poem I'm gonna read now, just so that folks can read along, because I know there's no like subtitles or captions on Zoom, and sometimes that's tough. So I'm gonna do that, and then we'll see y'all. Okay, and great. This poem is called A Litany for Survival. It's by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going, in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. And when the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard, not welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. Talk your shit, y'all. Talk your shit. Be about it, okay? Be about it. I love you.
Thank you all so much for everything and for sharing. I know we've already reiterated that, but it means so much as a current student, and I can speak personally as a current white student, and I understand the weight and the privilege that I have, and I'm so grateful to be able to share this space with you and to be able to learn and listen. And I know, Thea, we talked about this earlier, like it means so much for you to give us your time and your energy and everything. And so thank you guys, and thanks to everyone that joined us. And like David said, I so hope that we don't just take this as like, oh, this is a baby step. Like, we're going forward. Like, we're done. Like Cameron said, like, I should have been louder a long time ago, and I can live with that guilt, or I can fucking move forward. And I hope everyone will join me in that. So thank you guys so much. And Tio, you have the hosting, so we will all leave you. So thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie.